All right, I think we're actually live. So, just in case you guys missed the countdown, yeah, we should be good to go. So, welcome to the first episode of State of CS, and of course, I'm Anders with me, Semler and Vendetta. Don't know really. I think we don't. Do we need to introduce anything? I don't know how we're doing this. Semler, help me out.
Welcome everybody. I don't know, man. Like,
nailed
what
it.
the tactic is here. Like, we're just doing a show, right? Is that where we're supposed to talk about things that have happened in CS?
It would be a good way of going about it.
I think that's the general gist of it, right? Because we've been talking about doing this for such a long time, and I think every time in the past when we've sort of said, all right, well, let's do a talk show, then we try and like plan it out, and then tournaments happen, and we end up saying, well, it's not quite perfect. We should wait and try and do it later on. So now we're just going to do it and see where it takes us. So, yeah, thanks for everyone for tuning in. And, of course, this will be uploaded as a VOD on YouTube later on, so you can catch all of it. So if you're watching it on YouTube from the VOD, then thank you very much, and I hope you guys will enjoy it. We obviously will take all the feedback, and when we're live here, we'll be reading the chat, so you guys can just say whatever you feel like, and we'll try and keep up. Semler, where are you at? People are noticing there's a Big Mac in the background. Are you trying to get back to your American roots here? Are you...
Oh, no, dude. I'm full on Swedish roots, you know? I found that from when we did the commercials for McDonald's with Ragbite, and I was like, I kind of need a Big Mac in my life. So it's up on the wall.
Then, like, for a second, it's like, well, things aren't going too well for you, Sam. So, you know, part-time job at McDonald's.
I haven't put anything on the walls yet. It's totally fucking white. I literally set all this shit up this afternoon before coming onto the show. And so I'm like, well, that wall looks really fucking white. So I just walked around the office until I found something. I was just like, all right, I'll take that Big Mac. Just like put it there so there's something there. Fuck it, whatever, man.
Vendetta, people are already noticing that you look tired. It's because you've been playing Diablo for an unreasonable amount of time.
I've been playing every game for way too long into the night. It's unreal. So these dark rings are going to take some time to get rid of. It's rough. You know how it is. You've played Diablo.
Yeah, not anymore now. It's all Clash Royale. It's the only thing that I worry about.
It's like the 4 a.m. updates and Skype, like everybody Clash Royale.
It's
Dude,
so good.
I mean, I shit you not, the Malmo Green Room, it was like the most socially uninteractive room you've ever been in, because literally everybody in that room is fucking sitting on their phone, just like this, on their phone.
Yeah. Look, I blame.
And then you would just hear somebody say, you know, just randomly, right? Just be like, fuck! And you're like, you look over, you're like, you lost it, didn't you? It's like, yeah, man, fuck this shit, blah, blah. Yeah, it's like the most rage-inducing game. Dude, Anders, you actually had the best tweet about it, man. You had the best tweet about it, where it's like a social experiment to see how much you can hate someone in 3 minutes.
Dude, if I could do custom emotes with my own messages, God, I would be banned quickly from that game. Look, we obviously call the show State of CS, so we probably should talk about Counter-Strike eventually. We did make a sort of a rough list, and I guess why not just start at the top and talk a little bit about Dreamhack Austin, about the group's schedule. I guess people could find that easily enough themselves. But this is the first event that Dreamhack are doing in the United States, is it not? So what do you guys have about that kind of thought? You know, does it make sense for Dreamhack to move to America?
I think it makes sense. I mean, obviously, Dreamhack has a bit of a different vibe to it. Honestly, like, how many tournaments is there really in the US? If you think about it, most big tournaments. Oh Jesus, you're like a shining light, Sam.
That's incredible.
But yeah, no, there's not really that many tournaments going on in NA for that matter. Not, you know, in the sense that ESL has too many, I guess, open-ish tournaments in the NA or in any region. You've got SIVO, and then you've got like ETS, Philadelphia, and like minor stuff. So there's definitely like room for Dreamhack to actually make some headway there and actually get a good standing. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't do it.
That's the thing, man. It's like NA now, because SIVO have basically defected back to the motherland. Now, you know, with Gfinity in London. So unfortunately, you know, we've lost one of the North American tournament organizers there. MLG, they only get majors, it seems. I mean, maybe they're going to do more. We have no idea. We hope.
They have been saying that, haven't they, though? Like, I think Adam, for a couple of hours, was tweeting. People were asking him, is there going to be more Counter-Strike from MLG? And they definitely said yes. They didn't say what it was, you know, so I guess that's a bit vague.
Like, MLG might do something like minors, right? That's a big possibility.
Or SIVO. Or is it SIVO?
Yeah, I guess, right? unless you know, SIVO, as you said, has retreated to the motherland, then it could be MLG hosting that.
I mean,
I wonder how that's going to work out in the future. If this is going to be like a thing where it's Gfinity and Sivo teamed up together, and they help each other, right, to be able to stay competitive in the space.
Yeah.
I think the way that I've always thought about it is just from purely like a business standpoint. If I had a product like Dreamhack, which in Sweden is like an actual sort of cultural phenomenon where everybody, and absolutely everybody, knows what Dreamhack is. You go anywhere in Sweden around when Dreamhack is going on, and you could just ask people. Any cab driver will ask you, "Oh, you're going to Dreamhack, or you're going to the station to go to Dreamhack?" Like everyone knows what it is. All the newspapers, all the media, and everything, right? So if I had that product and that kind of sort of breakthrough with the general population, I would think, well, how many people are actually living in Sweden compared to the UK or to America? So if you had any chance of making the same product work in a market as big as America, for instance, then I think from a business point of view, it makes a lot of sense. I think for us as a sport and for Counter-Strike, it's super cool as well. But I'm just talking like the business side of it. I think I would say it's quite a smart move. Whether or not it can actually be done is obviously different. America is, and this is just in case you're, it's slightly bigger than Sweden. So travel times are going to be a different thing, right?
But I don't see how. Like, I have a hard time seeing it failing, actually, because if you think about it, like Americans have, if you want to go, to where Dreamhack Austin is, which is not surprisingly in Austin, they have South by Southwest, right? And if I'm not mistaken, South by Southwest have had fighting games as a part of South by Southwest.
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right.
And that's, originally like music and film festival, right? But it's still like the community aspect of it, right? So you have a bunch of people who haven't been exposed to it maybe, or, it's just like a place you can go that has more to it than just the one thing. And that's kind of what DreamHacks are about. Yeah. Sure, like we know DreamHack from the point of, competitive gaming, but they're like 99% of the people who go to DreamHack, they are there with their computers, playing with their friends, and then they happen to sit in the crowd and watch a couple of the tournaments. Maybe so, Maybe. Well, yeah, exaggeration and all that.
Let's hyperbole. It's not
exactly.
DreamHack Summer. What were the numbers of DreamHack Summer? I think they're getting around 20,000 people showing up, but I think that they only have like 10,000 land spots.
It's like around 11,000 seats.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think they've broken away. I think they've at least broken past the 20K mark for number of tickets sort of that show up, right?
I mean, you're making a good point, Ben, right? Because DreamHack's now the lands like summer and winter, which are the biggest events for them all year long, right? Apart from DreamHack Masters, I guess, which is this new series that they're doing starting off this year that we just did in Malmo. What they do is they have a lot of people now showing up because they book musicians as well. So you have the main hall, and then you have the stage there, and there's a bunch of shit going on the stage all the time. But then they'll have like some random, they'll have like a legit, set coming on from some famous DJ or some famous group or whatever that's like big in Sweden. And so what they're learning is that actually they get a lot of people who are buying just like the day pass to show up at DreamHack. They go and see the whole land thing, but then they really, they want to go and see that group, play.
Yeah.
So it's pretty big. I mean, they are getting around to it.
In terms of sort of DreamHack sizes, obviously we have DreamHack Summer and Winter that are like the two sort of the most sort of I guess common occurrences, and then now we have the Masters tournament that we saw in Malmo, which is obviously huge, which I do think DreamHack did an absolutely incredible job of executing. It was so well done. But the rest of the DreamHacks, we had one in Leipzig, we had this one in Austin. They seem to be sort of a smaller scale, and DreamHack are making less noise about it. I'm wondering again from sort of a tactical point of view, if it's your first event in the States, do you want to come in with like a huge bang, or do you want to say, let's test the water, see small investment, and we'll see how it goes, then sort of upgrade from there if it makes sense?
Hasn't that always kind of been the approach of DreamHack though? Small steps, baby steps, testing waters, and seeing what they get in return for their investment. And if it's something that people want more of, then they gradually expand. Because I mean, if you think about DreamHack Winter, what it is now, it wasn't like that. Just go 5 years back in time. Yeah, it's just obviously like it's something that ramps up. And I mean, Sam, you would know this because you did BLC. Dude, you did BLC at DreamHack 2010?
But the cynic inside me says that DreamHack haven't really changed much over the past. Like Malmo now, okay, that's something that's interesting because it's the first time that DreamHack have changed up their format, their open format, since 2011 or something?
Something like
2011, 2012. Because I remember they had the hockey stadium in Jönköping, like the hockey stadium that's next to the LAN event. That's when they booked it out. I can't remember if it's 2011 or 2000. I think it's 2011 winter. and they filled that shit out. But it feels like it's been a lot of the same for Dreamhack for quite some time. Like everybody else has been like moving along around them, and they haven't really done anything to get like an impact and to really change up. So the Masters, the Malmo Masters, seems like their first big, like, all right, here's something that's really big and flashy and different from our usual thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that Austin, we can really look at it as like, oh, it's going to be like this crazy.
No, I think it's more of like a start to Dreamhack getting a foothold in NA, and through that making something like, if you make Austin something that happens 2 times a year. So pretty much Dreamhack Austin is your Dreamhack winter and your Dreamhack summer only in NA. That's where you start off in. And like you said, it took a while before Dreamhack ever announced something like the Masters. But if Austin works out well for Dreamhack, they're going to be like, well, this is something we definitely want to do more times. And eventually that leads into something like, let's say, Dreamhack the Intergalactic, obviously, in NA, right? Like a massive tournament.
Yeah, Dreamhack the next Beastie Boys, is that it?
Dude, haven't you heard that? Like about how Navi, the Dota team, is always going to make the Intergalactic because they failed to qualify for the International?
Jesus. No, this goes like right the fuck over my head. Dude. I haven't paid attention to Navi since Puppy was on the team.
Damn.
Yeah.
Boom.
The good old days. I know what you mean. So I mean, it's in Texas as well. It's not in Dallas though, but there's something sort of slightly historic about that as well. That's what people say, right? People say that Austin is significantly more entertaining to be in. Although I never really minded Dallas, but obviously the old CPL tournaments were mostly around Dallas. So there's some cool historical angle there as well. Counter-Strike coming back to Texas a little bit more. I kind of like that. ESCA used to obviously have their lands before they got swept up a little bit, but and sort of rolled into ESL 1, right? But before then, they were obviously in Dallas as well, in Texas. So I think there's there's some historical sort of roots to Bilton in the area. People maybe used to traveling or have always wanted to travel or something like that to go to such an event. So I think it kind of makes sense from that point of view as well.
And you've got I think you're hitting the point right there, is because Dreamhack, the reason why they're in Jönköping in Sweden is because as far as they're concerned, it's in the middle of Sweden and it's really easy to get to from everywhere around it. Quick travel times by Swedish standards, right? Whereas it seems like maybe Texas, maybe same mindset is being put into play there. It's kind of in the middle of the United States. Although same travel distance for everybody on the extremities. I don't know. What do you
Whenever
think?
you do say that you're going to Texas, anyone from the US will say, "Oh, why Texas?" And I heard a beautiful explanation of someone saying that how the rest of the world views America is how Americans view Texas. I think that's an apt description.
They're always talking about seceding or whatever from the
yeah, that's true,
from the states, and just we're gonna beat Texas, and Texas is their own country. And
I heard the same thing about Florida.
Dallas, so there you go.
Damn, Texas not heart.
So there's another tournament to talk about as well that's going to be coming up in NA soon. That's ESL. They just went ham today. And it's like all the players are tweeting about it. Everybody's talking about it, that they're coming to New York.
Barclays Center.
With a $250,000 event in October.
Come on, help me out here, Ben. I don't watch American sports at all. What is the Barclays Center?
Barclays Center is the home arena for the Brooklyn Nets, which was previously owned or part owned by Jay-Z. So I'm assuming you know who Jay-Z is, Anders, because you do listen to hip hop.
I do. Actually, yeah. Jay-Z is not a favorite of mine. I'm more of the West Coast rapping, but still, I'm okay with it. It's all right.
Yeah.
All right.
No, but yeah. So Brooklyn Nets are the home team of the Barclays Center. Unfortunately for them, the team sucks right now. Hopefully, this year's tournament is going to be a lot better than the team. So people actually go there will get some proper entertainment. Because I've watched a couple of Nets games this year, and that was less than fun. But the stadium is completely new. It's like state of the art stuff. It looks really sick. Obviously, I'm assuming ESL are gonna put their own touch to it as to how everything's gonna be looking inside. But like the stadium in itself is just top notch. It's like doesn't have the same story obviously as a Madison Square Garden, but just in terms of how like sick the stadium is, it's just up there.
Yeah, are you noticing?
Somebody just linked into the chat that it has 15,000 seats. So maybe 10 of those will be used.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you guys noticing? Because the first thing that I noticed is the size of the prize pool. which, now that the major upgraded for 1 million and we know Cologne is going to be there as well, I'm thinking that ESL must have had a conversation at some point internally of saying, like, how big of a splash do we want to make? Is 250,000 enough? Do we want to go, 500,000? Do we want to upgrade to 1 million? It's not like they don't have the sort of the money to do it if they wanted to. I think this says something about like the growth of the game, right? That they've probably made the analysis and sort of ended up with the conclusion that what we get out of putting in another $250,000 is not worth it just yet. Let's do this first and see where it takes us, right? Which I think is a bit interesting, right? It says something about also, I think, how much pressure ESL feel under from whatever competition is out there, right? That potentially they don't feel like they need to like, I mean, 250,000 is not a small price pool. That's not what I'm trying to say, but it doesn't have to be a super big splash. It's not they didn't have to sort of drop a nuke on it and say, we're just gonna knock this one out. So I think that's a bit interesting.
Right. But I think also location means something, right? Like if you could have a $50,000 tournament on the moon, people are going to be hyped as fuck about that, right?
That's a good point.
And like, being in the Barclays Center, like having an actual arena, that type of thing. It's like what Star Letters doing with the Dynamo Kiev arena. Like stadium events are hype, right?
This is what's going on, guys. So they were off the coast, East Coast, right, in a boat, Florida, somewhere nice, big fishing, right? And all of a sudden, in the distance, what do they see? But a breach. And it's a wild Gaven that appears when it comes out of the ocean, comes crashing back down. And ESL are like, oh, the Gaven, how can we catch it? So they have to bait the hook, right? And they're going through the baits, and they've got the small little rinky-dink baits these days, $50,000, not good enough. No, we need the big bait for Gaven. So 250K. I'm saying it could be the next major. That's what I'm saying. ESL
for a second, I thought you were going to be like
fishing day after day, sitting in the sun.
I was expecting like when you were going through the bait, I was expecting like 250,000 microtransactions that would instantly hook them.
I think you just called Gaben a whale, so I mean I think that's we could be expecting a letter any day or a phone call.
Yeah, it's probably Sem could be right? Like the next major is going to be at Barclays Center. Sem's not going to be there. No idea why. It's going to be a statement on Reddit.
I think that's because they use the same tactic with Cologne, right? Remember when they were doing when they do the Cologne tournament, they're announcing for 250K, and then they announce for 250K, and then they pitch for the major because it's the right time, right? So who's going to get because now we know that Cologne is going to be the next 250,000 or $1 million major now, obviously, right? Yeah. But what's going to be the last major of the year? Because we can assume that there's going to be 3 this year, the same as it's been for the past couple of years, right? And so I'm thinking, this is ESL. Maybe this is ESL's bid for that major spot. 2 majors in North America in the same year. What would happen?
Keep in mind, last year, well, obviously, Cluj-Napoca was after, because if I'm not mistaken, ESL 1 New York is going to be at the start of October, right? Like,
yeah,
so something like that. ESL did a similar event with 250,000, or like with a big prize pool in Dubai last year.
True.
And I don't think that was like their bid for another major.
It's too close. You need to have like 3 months between the majors, I think.
Exactly. So if we were gonna have it in June, like late June or whatever it is, Cologne is announced.
July.
Yeah, July. Okay, even then, yeah. And if ESL 1 is in New York is going to be in early October, then you don't really have that time. And that was something that a lot of people, who watch CES complained about, that you didn't really feel the hype for Cluj because it's so close up into Cologne. It like literally went 1 week after Cologne has been finalized, and then you have like, oh yeah, by the way, next major it's going to be Cluj-Napoca. So get ready, and everyone's like, wait, what? We haven't really digested the result of Cologne yet. So
it's the same thing for this time around, right? With Cologne being announced, and they announced it like a week after.
Like, yeah, it's announced early, but like there's still time to digest what happened at MLG, right? Until Cologne comes around in July. I don't think you're going to have the same luxury.
Bubba is bringing up a point in the chat right now that that the other games are going to be announced. So
yeah,
maybe that comes into play. I could also see a world in which ESL cut the fuck out of those other games just to make sure that, if Valve are like, oh, we're kind of interested in the Barclays Center, we could be good with an East Coast event. It's still a good time zone for Europe. It's still decent enough to travel to. Blah blah blah. I mean,
that could happen. But
do you
I
think
wouldn't
that
be
ESL
surprised.
would like, here's the limb with all the other games? Do you not think that they would like start gnawing at that arm just to get it off if it meant that they'd get the
For
two
sure.
majors running?
For sure.
I mean, yeah, that would make sense for them. But it wouldn't surprise me either if they just announced Dota. That's the replacement of ESL New York they had last year in the Madison Square Theater.
Yeah.
So now they loop it all together. Boom.
I think this also, I mean, this ties into something else which sort of speaks to the general condition of Counter-Strike as a game, right? Because you're right, in some senses, all the different companies are trying to sort of persuade Valve that we should be the next company to host a major tournament, because obviously a lot of cool things come with that. And actually, in that sense, Valve are doing a pretty good job at sort of making sure that the competition is at a pretty high level, right? Everybody wants to put on the best possible show, which from an audience point of view is pretty great. You do want people to compete for it. It would be awful if there was only one company that could have only ever put on the majors, and Valve had sort of permanently teamed up with them, and that was the only way it was ever going to work. So you got to wonder. My big fear, and I have no reason to suspect that this will happen, but what would obviously kill this current sort of ecosystem that we got going on would be if ever a tournament tied into a major, right? So you'd have to play in the tournament to qualify for a major. If that somehow happened, I think that would be horrific, in fact. So I kind of hope we can avoid that. I've never heard any talk of it, so I'm just bringing it up as like a cautionary.
Don't give them ideas. Don't give them ideas.
Don't give me an idea, right? Exactly. But I think other than that, I mean, this should in theory, it should mean that without the sort of the competition to put on the best possible show every single time, it's just going to increase for a very long time, which I think is interesting. I'm not sure. Do any other games have a similar kind of setup? What is going on with the?
What are you doing, Sam?
I'm experimenting here because
you're making the
I'm not
burger in
pleased
the
with this
background.
Either the acid.
Maybe we will just go
on
noir.
me,
I'm gonna light a cigarette.
Dude, mine has
bang
done
my
that.
head.
Do you have some like fancy settings on yours that says like true life technology, camera filter, whatever? Like for me, it's just everything's automatic, and this is what it gives me, like Instagram filter. I don't know.
It's the acid.
Yeah, exactly. It's not it means it's garbage. So you know what?
Yeah.
It's it's like real life. Like some people, they just want you to be black and white, very clear cut. Either you're against them, you're with them, you're against them. Right. There you go. Right. I'm black and white tonight, boys. Grayscale or something. I don't know. Let's see.
there's a Trump joke to be making here somewhere.
Or nay for every topic we discuss.
All right, we could try and keep that thing going. I wouldn't mind that. All right, so I mean, obviously we don't have too much information about this thing in New York just yet, but I guess the general feeling is that it could be quite cool. Just to touch up on, do you want to talk about the Dreamhack groups at all? I mean, in some ways there is like a pretty clear list, and it seems like the Brazilian teams are just better potentially right now, although I guess Tempo Storm are a bit unreliable. But do you guys have any comments about that, just to wrap up the Dreamhack Austin thing a little bit?
It's you can tout it as the battle for NA to retake their region. I don't think they're going to succeed though.
Wow.
I think it's going to be a Luminosity Tempo Storm finals. They have been the best teams just form wise. I think both teams play most of the time better at LAN events than what they do online. And I think that's going to come into their benefit as well. Tempo Storm obviously have to be riding off a high from Gfinity. So I guess that could, potentially be a really good boost for them, or it could be their downfall if they start to relax, which I don't think Fallen is going to allow them to do. He's going to run across the street, with a bat and get angry if they don't practice. But, I think they're going to be brimming with confidence and luminosity. They're just pound for pound a way better team than anyone else there.
I've seen them getting their practice on, kicking a football around, and I mean a soccer ball.
Yeah. No, it's football. It's football. You were right the first time.
Let's not make any mistakes here. I don't think that the Brazilians know how to play the real football. So
the real football. Jesus, you're going to get so much hatred for that comment. I have to be honest, I don't know anything about football, although it struck me that Leicester won something recently, and it brought flashbacks to when I was there, because I did not enjoy my time in Leicester at all. Not because of the Counter-Strike, just because the city was so weird. Jesus.
I remember some pictures.
You look like some sort of, superhero villain as well.
Oh, this is what they do whenever they have like anonymous people commentating on a news case.
Yeah.
If we distort
that's
Sembler's voice right now. It's like Moses did this to me at DreamHack Masters. Like,
It's basically, yeah. I have to fake my voice now. I'm gonna have to get one of those voice synth boxes, that
Get a modulator.
get throat cancer or something, and just like talk to the voice like that.
Jesus Christ. All right. Okay, so do we have anything else to comment about the? Now, let's compartmentalize and keep, because we're obviously going to go into the Asian region in a bit. Now we've been sort of in the American region a little bit. Should we do South? Have you guys been keeping an eye on other South American teams? Temperstorm and Luminosity, obviously the two that everyone knows, but there's Kogu's team out there somewhere. Bolts and Steel are still roaming around, and there's a lot of
Bolts
talent.
Is still in Temperstorm, man.
Oh yeah, not Bolts. Who was I thinking about? Steel and ZQK. Yeah, right. So there are all these people out there, and because I was watching a little bit of Brazilian CS lately, and they actually there's a lot of talent, people I've never even heard of that just come out and seem to have a fundamentally very high level. I would say that the Brazilian scene is potentially becoming very, very strong. I'm actually beginning to be just a little bit worried. Because they seem to have just a lot of people who can play pretty good fundamental Counter-Strike. I don't know.
One of the really cool thing about the Brazilian scene is that oftentimes when you hear about, I guess, nations of past glory in Counter-Strike, Norway being a prime example of that. Our issue was that pretty much everyone retired, right?
I'm just leaving that one.
No, I'm talking way back, way back.
Did you get that? Did you get the histories written on a stone tablet or something?
Pretty much.
Fizzle did
pretty much. But, it was a time when we still used, tracking ball, that kind of stuff. But
I was gonna go with like finger painting, like pigment on the wall. This was a frag.
That's how you drew strats, obviously.
Yeah,
yeah. But no, the Brazilians, they have the luxury of still having, obviously you mentioned Kogu is playing for INTZ or INTS, I guess you could call them. Obviously, a massive amount of experience, but they're not the only ones. Like the Keyed Stars guys who are playing in that team now, I guess they kind of just left before the Brazilian America's Minor Championship that they had. They had Pava, PRD, so old Made in Brazil members. A lot of people from Fire Gamers and Made in Brazil are still playing, but they're not playing with each other. They're playing with new, younger players. So you have Knock and Bit also playing in other teams with 3 youngsters, and that obviously helps the new ones learn how to play competitive Counter-Strike at a much faster pace. So already, it seems like you have a lot of teams that are very competitive with each other, because the team that won this American Minor Championship, which was Big Gods, which is pretty much a lot of players who would be completely unfamiliars to most viewers. They managed to beat out teams like Bit's team and PRD's team, Kogu's team as well in the finals. But they, they don't necessarily win every tournament that they have in Brazil. They came 5th or something in the Brazil's Open Division in ESEA. So I think he won that one. Although I could be wrong, but still, you have a ton of teams that are actually battling it out at every given time in Brazil, and that's just a massive plus. It's kind of reminiscent of how the Danish scene used to be in CSS, which is pretty much tournaments going on every single time, and you have a ton of good players going to absolutely every event and attending every tournament offline or online time. So that just bodes for a really good competitive environment. So yeah, no, I'm really excited to see how they're gonna do. I think the Big Gods team, which is the one that won the minor championship, are gonna be pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of time, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they need to get
I saw a lot of really impressive stuff, so I was definitely pleased. People I don't think I wouldn't have heard of otherwise. So I would say if you're bored one evening and you see sort of unknown Brazilian teams playing, it's probably worth it to take a look, because you might sort of catch a glimpse of someone who's going to be big in 6-8 months or something like that. It could be interesting.
I'm just wondering what happened. Are there going to be orgs that come out of the woodwork to sponsor these teams? How do you get sponsorships for these teams?
Well,
it didn't happen for Luminosity, it didn't happen for Temperstorm until they got those orgs, right?
Well, so this is where they are so lucky. They have one sponsor, and he's called Fallen. So if Luminosity keep winning, $1 million majors, maybe all of a sudden you'll have just an entire suburb filled with Brazilian teams.
Put some of that Skrilla away someday, right?
Oh, well, yeah, and I'm sure he does. He's a smart guy.
I'm spending all my money, but eventually he's gonna have to actually try and put a little bit away. Maybe actually start using connections, not spending his own money, and actually getting sponsors on board to get these teams out there.
now that Tempo Storm is winning tournaments, he can be like, well, remember what I did for you, pass that on. Just shove the burden onto someone else.
We'll start really going in there. Yeah. There you go. I mean, that's the thing. He's like the godfather of, Brazilian CS at this point.
Yeah.
Just like, I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. I'm going to pay you to go to this event, but then I own your soul for all eternity. I mean, yeah. Fallen's a great guy at all.
Accurate. No, absolutely.
Godfather was a nice guy too.
At least the people liked, right?
Jesus. All right. Any other comments on the American side? I think I've run out of things to think of. I'll probably think of it later, but
apart from like what a train wreck some of these teams still seem to be, it seems.
This is the problem. I can't even find any motivation to talk about it. It just seems like everyone is still like.
I have one topic for you, Anders.
Go on.
Because there's a team there called Team Liquid, but they're missing a player.
Yeah, that's actually one of the topics that we could bring up. It's in the list. I mean, like what?
Yeah, but I almost just come on. Let's be real. Does it surprise anyone that this happened? No. Did anyone expect that it would not turn out this way? I think it was just a question of time. I mean, it's not that I doubt sort of Simple's commitment to play the game, but think about what a massive commitment it is to move to a country where, no one speaks your language and your family and your girlfriend and whatever else it was that came in the way. And then, I don't know. I didn't see it as a project that was gonna work. Because that project,
young, you'd think, like, do you think he's just too young, that he hasn't had time to mature enough in the sense that figure out what he wants to do and where he wants to go, that he's still too
and I think Simple strikes me as the sort of person who has a tremendous amount of confidence, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think he thinks I'm so good that even if I give up this, with Liquid, I will find somewhere else. Someone else will pick me up, which I think is probably true because he is very good. So I don't think this was Simple's sort of last chance to do anything at all. But I do think it was just like a combination of being a bit too young maybe, and then just I think the project just being a little bit crazy to begin with. But I did enjoy it, so I don't regret that they did it. I just think it was crazy to imagine that it was ever going to turn out any different, basically.
Honestly, like how many of these, I guess, when you see people actually, I guess immigrate to the US or to US teams, right? How long have they lasted? You have Winter Fox with Python Devil Walk, that didn't last for too long.
Yeah.
You have Simple here. Like, regardless of how old you are or how mature you are, it's still going to be a pretty massive transition, especially if you're put in the kind of environment that Simple was put in, because he's literally not having any contact with his team members.
Think about it
like in person, because they're living, on the other side of the country pretty much.
Think about it this way too. I mean, suppose you, like, any team you join is obviously going to have like good and bad times, and I think it's fine if you move to a completely different region. You move halfway across the world to play Counter-Strike. As long as you're winning, it's probably great. You can probably keep it up, and it feels good, and the team feels good internally as well. But as soon as you start to run into any kind of trouble, then you don't have your friends around, and like even if you just talk to them online, they're going to be in a different time zone, so you could only, it's going to be harder to actually catch them. And it's just like all these things. I think once things go bad, if you're that far away from home, a lot of people it'll hit them sort of twice as hard suddenly.
Yeah.
So I think it works for as long as things are doing really well, and maybe otherwise not so much. A couple of you also brought up the idea that Summit might be playing for Splyce.
I think that's confirmed. Yeah.
Return of Scummit.
Yeah.
Scummit.
It is
taking shots.
It is time.
Well, he was at I ran into him really, really briefly, and I kind of regretted that I didn't get the chance to say hi to him more because I was in a hurry and he was in a hurry. But he was obviously at the major in Columbus, and I think he was. Oh God, there we go. I think he was saying afterwards that he sort of said that actually just being there and feeling the energy made him want to play again. And I think there was even a while, wasn't he, when he was sort of openly debating, should I sort of quit streaming and do professional Counter-Strike? And then after a while, he thought, well, I'm making like millions, so probably not a good idea. But still, he seemed to sort of get carried away a little bit by the very cool atmosphere that is professional Counter-Strike. And I can't really blame him for that, actually.
No, you know what we need right now is that Woody Harrelson gif, where it's like, what is it, Zombieland or whatever?
Wiping his eyes with...
wiping his tears with Betty's, just...
Yeah.
There you go, man. I mean, it's probably at the point where he he thought, I really want to be a pro player, and I think I can do it. I really think so. Except that I'm from NA, and and I'd have to play with CLG or Liquid, and then he wheeled himself around in his chair, and beside him obviously are all of his big bags of money, and it's just like, yeah, and he just goes over and hugs them, like, I'll never leave you. I'll never leave you.
Can we be really cruel and say that the obvious problem is that if he wanted to join a professional team, Splyce was the wrong one. It obviously should have been Cloud9 because winning is not really part of the mission statement.
I mean, it would go hand in hand with streaming, right?
There we go. That was exactly the angle that I was to bring in.
Yeah, you had TST, right? The stream team. Cloud9 is just like the level up.
Well,
it's pretty much where you're at,
man. I gotta say, thanks everybody. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Like 1G's in the chat. Let's get some 1G's in the chat. Yep, what's up? Yep, 1G's in the chat, guys.
All right. Yeah. So I'm glad we got that in there.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see.
Like somebody tried to spam them earlier, so shout outs to that guy.
The one guy.
I think that was a quality segment. I'm glad we got that in there. But oh yeah. I don't know. I honestly feel like the level of the teams otherwise attending Austin is going to be really, really hard to predict. So I don't know. I still think that what we all ended up terming the American shuffle instead of the American Revolution, right? The sort of or the snuggle, I guess, and people ended up saying was just that. It wasn't enough. We needed more. We needed someone to step in, and I've always thought that Hiko would probably be that someone someone just give Hiko a lot of money and have him put a team together that is sort of the ultimate team.
You just want to see pretty much. You want to see somebody get shafted really, really bad. You just want to see somebody lay waste to people, and 5 people will remain on the battleground, and that's going to be the next hope of NA.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you want.
It's cool. I think the American term is collateral damage. So sometimes that just happens, but if you win in the end, that's really all that matters.
For the greater good.
That's what American foreign policy has taught me. So yeah, I'm still waiting for it. It's not that I don't think we can learn anything watching American Counter-Strike in the meantime. It's just that it's somehow like everyone is holding back a bit too much. Stop worrying about qualifying for things and just build. I think eventually you will hit like a critical mass where enough players will say, I only care about being in the best team now. That's my only objective. It's the only thing I want. I don't care about being on like a fancy team or being paid 5,000 or 10,000 a month or whatever like that. That's not I just want to win. So more people like that.
I think like 90% of the guys who were that way aren't allowed to play CS anymore.
Jesus. Yes. All right.
No, I mean, if you think about it, whenever you heard or read interviews or saw people being interviewed or talked to them or saw them stream or something, like who were the one who had that ride or die mentality to winning. Yeah. Like it would be someone like Daze who were like, I don't want to be your friend. I just want to win. Right. Like we can play together and that works out well, but anything outside of winning doesn't really matter too much. And you don't really have too many people left with that mentality. So I don't know.
It's gonna have to be the younger generation. That's what I think. It's gonna have to be the new guys coming in. We're gonna get their crack, like Shroud did back in the day, right? Just a couple lands. Oh, gets picked up, starts doing work. Well, Shroud tried to do work.
Started streaming.
Started streaming. Went down the wrong path.
It's gonna have to come down to these guys who are gonna come out of FPL, out of ESEA, out of something like that. It's gonna be that story where like Lekro for Godsent, where it's just like, all right, we have no idea who this guy is, but he's ripping our heads off on these servers. Let's actually try him out and see, could it actually work? And then all of a sudden, you've got some young, ultra hungry talent that you can try and build your team around.
Yeah,
I think that's probably going to be the only hope, really. And
well, you're still going to need
the closest that we can come to recently that's happened with an NA.
You're still going to need that elder statesman, right? Who's willing to actually assemble this team, right? And like somebody who's actually willing to bring these guys under his wing and actually teach them how to play. Because if you want to take Lekra as an example, like obviously he just didn't pop out from FPL, like he's been playing in Publica and those kind of teams previously, but he has Pronax to learn from, like he has Schneider to learn from.
Play against that
No.
Do any of the top teams play against public clear?
No. Like obviously, like, the level, like he steps up to, like, a significant level, but it's not like he's a complete nobody who just randomly happened to stumble into FPL, that kind of thing. So he's played versus other Swedish teams at eSport SM, that kind of event. Where you're not going to play Luminosity or something, but you're going to run into potentially Nip or Fnatic or someone like that. But I still think it's going to take someone like one of the older guys in NA, like a Hiko or Sean or something like that, to be come here, my young ones, and teach them how to play CS and go from there. But you're going to need one grumpy guy on the team, one old and grumpy man who doesn't want to toss the kids off the lawn.
Well, yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, and then obviously you need some other money to want to finance that kind of project, because I mean that is the when you talk to NA players, they say the reason this hasn't happened yet is because everyone has a ridiculous buyout on their contract. So even if someone wanted to build that team, all the players you'd have to buy, it would be too expensive, something surely at some point all the contracts will line up and someone will do it. I think it's only a sort of a question of time. Really.
Well, one way to get that going is to have some kind of off season between leagues, where your contracts line up for that off season, and then you have a trading period in that off season where people will get shifted around. Either their contracts expire during that time because they signed them in such a way that they do, or they just get bought out. But yeah, I mean, obviously all the teams are trying to cash in now when you've got these superstar players that are coming along into what is becoming the biggest game. Of course,
yeah, who should do it? Who should do it? It should be Scoots, shouldn't it? He has the money. He's also old.
He has the passion.
Isn't he part of EG as well?
Well, EG is a part of Twitch now.
Oh yeah, it's true.
So, but that's where you got all that Skrilla. So
exactly. Oh, there we go. That would be some real history, wouldn't it?
Thanks for resubbing, Plimo.
Like, you know what? I think Scoots played. If you want to go back to history and NACS, Scoots played in the first. I think it was the first CPL, like CPL Babbage in Dallas in 2000, or it was 2001 with the UGX or UMX. I can't remember. But how baller would that be if Scoots actually created a team that was called the same name that his team had back in 2001, 2000, just got all the NA talent together, sat there with his no peak bat at every event, and made America great again.
That's the plan.
That's the dream. That's the dream. So now it's all in Scoots. If anybody wonders why NA aren't really reaching the top, blame Scoots.
I'm all right with that. I could live with that. All right. I'm gonna mark this the point where we switch and talk about Asian Counter-Strike instead. Because more of that has been happening, right? A couple of us, no, all of us went to Taipei, right?
Yeah.
For IEM, and had, I think, overall an interesting and good time. There were some unfortunate issues with Tyloo obviously being disqualified due to a play that was VAC banned, which is upsetting. But apart from that, it was definitely good fun. Where do you guys see all of this going? We've got the minor in South Korea. We've got this Beijing thing with NEA. We've got so much coming up now, it seems, in the Asian region.
I'm just super excited. Like that's all. Because well, you would know this, Anders, because you follow 1.6 as well. But like tournaments with Asian teams had more spice to them. Like when you had an Estro at a CPL, or you had a Lunatic High, or We Made Fox, it was just more fun because you didn't get to see those at so many international tournaments. So when they came back to tournament after, let's say, like a 4 or 5 month period where of nothing, we hadn't really heard anything from them, they'd bring out something new that'd be interesting to watch, that'd be fun to watch, and that'd be really good. So we're just kind of waiting for the period of time where CS:GO is actually going to have that foothold in Asia to actually host big tournaments, have teams fully commit to playing it, and now we're finally getting there.
The beginning of the end, boys.
Yeah.
That's what some people have been saying, right?
Cyclical.
But I mean, they tried once and they failed in 1.6. They mastered every other game but Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
So far.
It's real now, where Asian teams have millions of dollars to invest. Asian Chinese teams, for example, millions of dollars to invest.
Part of what I kind of
infrastructures.
What I would kind of hope is that we could have let's just say on a sort of preliminary basis, maybe there could be 4, but at least 3 different sort of regions. So we have like American Counter-Strike, which has its own metagame during the online season when people play in the leagues. Then there's European Counter-Strike, where European teams play, and then we have sort of Asian Counter-Strike, where Asian teams play. And then for the bigger tournaments, these teams get to play each other, but then you have sort of a clash of styles. Because for a long time, I think in Global Offensive, what's actually happened is European Counter-Strike has sort of been assumed, and I would say probably also proven to be the best kind of Counter-Strike. And then American Counter-Strike has sort of been trying to emulate that. What are the Europeans doing? Let's try and do that, which I think is not necessarily a reasonable way to go about it. And I don't think Asians will go the same. I think they'll actually try and just do their own thing. I don't think they necessarily will look at what the rest of the world is doing. They'll just do their own thing and make that work. And I think that could be interesting.
I wonder how it's going to happen with the. I wonder how it's going to happen with the players. Because it's eventually the players, like what happened with Luminosity, are going to have to lose this respect, lose this fear that they have of the European players. Because apparently, and this is just a little anecdote, like something that happened at Malmo, right, at Masters, Tyloo, right, they were a team that were showing up every day to prac using the practice PCs, and NIP were pracking at one point, and Tyloo went over, stood behind them, and then sat next to them and set up, but then were too shy to go and ask NIP for a scrim. They just sat there and did their own thing, right? But they wanted to go, and eventually, these players are gonna have to figure out, actually, when you get onto the server, it doesn't matter who's across from you. You're gonna have to wreck them one way or another. And once they get through that, I mean, Tyloo have massively improved. They look pretty damn good. So give them more time. It just seems like now with this experience, with this European experience now, where they have the lands and they're able to see different styles and see the issues in their game, we might have a sort of scenario where if Tyloo are the only Asian team that's getting to travel over to these North American events, that they're just going to completely dominate the rest of Asia because, well, they have more experience. They have more access to top-tier teams to play against. We could have a kind of Asian NIP sort of thing setting up here, maybe.
That could be. I think at least speaking from what history, Asians have actually been really good at actually playing fearlessly and not having too much respect for people. One cool thing as well, when it comes to just the mental aspect of it, is WNV was one of the first Asian teams to actually make an impact or make a dent towards European and NA teams in 1.6. They had this thing where they would actually unbind their console. So whenever they did poorly in a game, they had no idea of actually checking it. Because oftentimes, if you're doing poorly, you bring up the scoreboard and you're like, I'm 3 for 12, my life is over, that type of thing, right? They'd actually just unbound their scoreboard completely and just played.
That's what I told Dupree to do so long ago.
Yeah,
and he was notorious for just hitting tab, look in the scoreboard, and if he's doing bad, then it's just that's all he's looking at, right, the scoreboard. And I was like, I'm literally going to take the key out of your keyboard. If you keep doing that, I'm going to remove that key and make sure you don't bind it to another one, so you stop giving a shit about what's on that scoreboard. Just get out there and get your job done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But back to what you were saying, Anders, with the different clash of styles and whatnot. I think we're actually going to see that eventually. I don't see too many Asian teams actually trying to copy what Europeans are doing in that sense.
I just have a lot of
their own way of doing it.
Real quick, just a silly joke. I have a lot of trouble seeing what North American CS are going to try and do. Imagine this existential crisis that they're going to have. You unbind the keyboard, the scoreboard for them. They're like, but what is my purpose now? But how can I tell that I'm good or not? What is this? Play the game? What?
Oh man. Do we have some?
Thinking, but if no scoreboard, is
there we go.
Real?
We had a bit of lag. So I mean, I think what could be. I think if you just look at other esports titles like Dota, for instance, right? There is obviously a sort of a significant style difference between Chinese Dota and and American Dota, for instance, right? And even if you find inspiration in each other's plays, just because you will end up playing in your own region for a while, means it is going to be significantly different once you get to the land stage of any tournament. I think that's terrific. I think that's something to aspire to. It'll make it really fun. Plus, I think it'll grant the game a lot more of a lifespan, basically.
Oh yeah. That inspires innovation instead of staleness.
Exactly, but what it doesn't solve for us, and what it might in fact make worse in some ways, is the oversaturation that everyone loves talking about, right? So I mean, you got to wonder about that too. We already have a lot of tournaments. I hesitate to say too many because
no, we don't have too many tournaments. We have a lot.
We have a lot, right? So if you suddenly start throwing in really big Asian tournaments, I mean, this one's $100,000, but if it really kicks off, it really becomes popular. If you have teams having to choose between, do we want to go to New York for the CSL thing, or do we want to end up in Hong Kong to do something? It won't have to be a bad thing, but it could put more stress on teams to try and figure out what the hell they want to do, right?
And that's what I'm hoping for. When I saw that article that Fiflar and he did an interview with Aftonbladet, didn't he, recently, where he said there's too many tournaments. The players need to have time. It's just like, well, who's deciding? At this point, unfortunately, it comes down to the players to regulate themselves. That they need to be the ones to decide, well, we don't want to go to that tournament, which is like what's happening at Dreamhack Austin, right? And this is exactly what will happen in the future. If there are so many tournaments, and a lot of these tournaments, are starting to have pretty serious money, if you're one of the lower tier tournaments with not as much money as the big tournaments coming in, and you're hoping that like last year you would be able to get those tier 1 teams, the tier 1 teams are probably going to be in a situation now where they can say, actually don't really feel like going to that tournament. Maybe we'll take this week off, or we'll take this week to prac and like try and come up with something new, because maybe the last tournament that we competed at, we felt like we got a little stale. I'm hoping that that's the direction it goes in, because it is all in the players' hands. The players are the ones that need to decide at this point, and they don't need a union to do it. They just need to have the teams, and the teams just need to decide, like, actually, we don't feel like going to this event. We don't feel like going to this tournament. And that'll stabilize everything, because at that point, then Dreamhack Austin becomes a North American tournament, which isn't that bad. Isn't like it's a poor thing for it to happen. Now North American teams get a crack at it, and Tempo Storm get a tournament to compete in, and and we just see a little bit more variety in our scene rather than just seeing the same teams every weekend, which is what needs to stop. We need to stop seeing all these teams online all the time in these online games, and we need to stop seeing them every single weekend. I want to look forward to the next time Fnatic and Envy play, for example, something like that. Not, I can see them again. I can see them playing online tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, Semler and I, we had this discussion, and I think we also tried to describe a similar scenario to Valve. Although, just to point out, the Valve guys never give like a straight answer when you're at a tournament with them.
Yeah.
I think for good reason. It would be painful for them to sort of tie themselves to a statement that they made to someone, and then suddenly the whole community is up in arms about it. But so just imagine if you did have, let's say, 3 big leagues that all sort of play out throughout the year, and not all of the top teams are in all 3. So in one league you'll have Fnatic and Astralis playing in a different league. You'll have Envy and Virtus Pro and Na'Vi, say, and so obviously that means there's going to be a couple of months where those teams can't really play each other. But then you get to the major tournament. So, essentially the sort of the top 3 of one league get to play the top 3 of a different league, but they only do that at the major tournament. That's where sort of everything binds together. That would make for a pretty exciting tournament circuit. I don't know how to orchestrate this, but it's worth thinking about as sort of an opposite to what's happening now, where it really is true. So many of the top teams play each other all the time, and it becomes a bit much, maybe.
But I think that might be something that just happens organically. Because eventually, some teams. Well, you see, goddamn, that burger actually does look better once you mess around with the colors. But no, you do see it. You do see it in tournaments already. Like Na'Vi dropping tournaments, Fnatic deciding to take a couple of tournaments up. Obviously, they have players who are injured, but eventually you're going to see teams prioritize one thing over another, and it will lead into us not seeing all the best teams at every given event. And the same thing happens if you have big tournaments happening over in Asia as well. Some teams are probably going to say that, well, we'd rather play here, whether it's because it's easier competition or it's a completely different experience. That's going to be something other teams say no to, like depending on what the prize pool is and how the time frame for other tournaments, in the near future are set. So I think it's going to happen eventually just by default.
Okay, so just to follow up on that, because I think FinFeeder from the chat brought up a bit of a question about sort of what happens if you then if let's say it's the big matchup you want to see is Astralis and Fnatic playing, but you only see that once a year. That's the only time they get to play because of how the bracket turned out at the major or whatever. So that favorite matchup that you have, you only see the one time. This is actually a problem. I used to watch a lot of Dota. Now I don't really have time for it, but even when I was watching it, my problem was the only time I thought I could keep up was during the international, right? Because every other tournament, I would always think, well, this other team that's actually, technically like a top 5 or 6 team it's not at this tournament for some reason. So even if the other teams are doing pretty well, I don't know if, I can't really trust that result because this other team that's really good wasn't there, So I don't know. Does that mean are the rest still good, or is it just that one of the good teams were missing? It's kind of hard to tell, right? So there has to be, it could also go too far, right? It has some sort of balance between teams playing each other all the time and teams pretty much never playing each other, which I think logistically and sort of, if you're Valve, assuming that Valve has like the ultimate power in this sense, that's going to be a fairly hard calculation to make work. There's a lot of components in this, and Valve are a bit hands off to begin with. I don't know how to make it work. But it's easy enough to describe
Valve
the world
involved in the way that they are with Dota, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, that's the other thing, right? That's, I guess, for Counter-Strike people, that could be a scary sort of idea. Not that I think Dota is necessarily run badly. It just, I'm not sure it would work for Counter-Strike.
I don't. Yeah.
I don't know if there is an answer. I just think it's worth raising the question anyway, just to say that, playing each other every day, bad, but playing each other only once a year, also bad. So how do we make it different?
The way we have, I guess, a different way of doing it is that obviously, like you mentioned, how let's say we have three leagues that run through the year. Obviously, like if not every team is in all three leagues, then you're going to get different kinds of matchups for the the eventual LAN playoffs. But you still have a lot of organizers who host tournaments without actually having leagues bound to them, which allows teams to freely, I guess, freely travel to those tournaments where you could potentially get those matchups that you wouldn't see in League A because, Team 1 and Team 2 are in two different leagues. So you still get the matchups. And for majors, obviously, the best of the best are going to show up. So there's a potential of that happening. That's going to be 3 times a year at least. And in addition, you have, like a ESL 1 New York or a Dreamhack Masters or, so on and so on. So I think you're still going to have tons of opportunities and see, potentially your favorite matchups throughout the year. But it doesn't have to be, 2 times a week like it is now.
It doesn't exactly. It could be 3 times a year. Majors, right? If it's at the majors
But,
that they come through, or like the really, really big, like the Pro League
like Masters.
Yeah. At the same time,
or the Masters. I mean, to be frank, I prefer the Masters over the leagues right now. Like, to face it, the ESL, it's like they're stuck, or at least it seems to me like they're stuck that way because that's how they've sold their sponsorship or whatever. That they promised a certain number of minutes to these sponsors, and the only way to deliver on that is to have a league.
Also, guys, I'm not handicapped the crutch. I'm trying to open a window without actually viewing the stream, and it's going horribly for me.
Dude,
really.
I have the same thing as well. It's not a crutch, but like I have this thing, so I don't have to move. Like my window is right there.
Yeah.
But if
I made it
work.
I'm
guys
comfy
are
here.
so fucking depressing. Jesus Christ.
I made it work now. Look. I made it work. This is it. Look. The window's open.
The window is open.
Yeah.
Success.
It's all good. All good.
And we didn't even have to move. Yeah, it takes hard work being lazy. That's what I say.
It does. It's
takes a lot of hard work. But yeah,
so,
like PGL Minor?
PGL Minor, yes.
Because I think that was what we started talking about.
That's what we started talking about, yeah.
Can I say, I don't know how you feel about this, Tamla, but this is, I think, the first time in maybe 3 years that none of us have been at a tournament where there's sort of simultaneous tournaments, right? I think we always end up going to sort of one or the other, and I would have liked to have been either in Texas or in Seoul to do one of these 2 tournaments, but then this is also the only time we've had off in like 3 years, at least for a very long time, right? But I mean, it's that also I think says something about the intensity of the tournaments. Like there are so many that you sort of feel a bit of pressure to go to all of them. So for me, it was just a question of bad timing and also having to eventually sort of say, I am taking this time off no matter what, and then that's how it's turned out.
It's the same thing that we talk about, or what I'm talking about with the players, right? It's not like there needs to be a double standard or something where it's like we're telling the players to take a break and then we're trying to do every goddamn event. I mean, you have to. It seems to me like, well, this past week has been like learning what it is not to be thinking about your next flight. So
yeah,
it's been an interesting experience. And then we also have this. I mean, it's interesting to just miss out on a couple of events, but also we get to just like sit and watch the events, which is different, right? You know, it's like I get to catch the stream now, and I actually get to watch the games, and I'm like, okay, you know, I'm sitting at home and I'm relaxing, and I'm not having to, you know, commentate, so I can actually sit and see what's actually happening without having to think about, okay, what do I need to say on the stream? I can actually just see and like break down what the players are actually trying to do, and it's interesting to change it up. I mean, it's also like, well, for us at this point, it's like also thinking, okay, well, Pro League is going to come, which is happening very soon, and
E-League.
then E-League. So I mean, there's a lot going on. So you need to find a break somewhere, right?
Yeah, but it does look very exciting. I'm glad that obviously the Mongols are there. They ran into some horrible visa issues. Trying to play earlier, which is a big shame. And then we've got Cybersen and Tyloo, which seems to be such a cool sort of I guess domestic rivalry going on there, where they seem to keep beating each other, even though Tyloo seem to be sort of coming out a little bit on top. But there is like some cool stuff going on. Immunity and Renegades, more domestic matchups, and then Monster and MVP Project. Risky, I guess is a little bit more unknown for most people, but yeah,
we met Risky at Taipei.
We did.
Yeah, they were at Taipei. They were at Taipei. And they were, I mean, they just Havoc has been tweeting a lot recently, saying that they've been putting in some prac, that they hope that the prac has paid off, right? That, you know, only obviously the tournament will tell if the hard work that they put in has worked at all, has you know, worked out for them. All the Risky guys, you know, they don't do this full time. They work jobs, you know, and then trying to play CS is something that they do part time. So, you know, we just kind of have to see what kind of level they can bring. It's going to be tough with the likes of Tyloo in the tournament. I mean, curious to see what kind of level Mongols are going to have as well, considering all the hype that they had at the beginning of the year. But,
well, I mean, they've changed their lineup since that time.
Yeah, that's true.
As well. Like NCL is gone, and they brought in Element, who, you know, obviously online games in the Asian region can be misleading, but you know, Element hasn't at least been falling, you know, far behind any of his other teammates. Like, he's actually been doing really well. I think it's just like rating wise, stat wise, he's been their second best player after Machine Gun. And I mean, during Taipei, we were pretty impressed by both Machine Gun and Silkenberg.
Yeah.
So, you know, if Element is able to hold the level of Silkenberg, I think that's a definite upgrade for Mongols. Obviously, they still showed, you know, when they went to Katowice that they still had quite a bit to learn. But, you know, every team starts out like that. It's not like, you know, Vichy, the first time they were at an, you know, big international event, or Tyloo for that matter, just instantly knocked everyone out of the park. It's a gradual thing that's going to happen over time. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be a really fun tournament to watch. And, you know, not only because of, you know, your Mongols or Vichy, Tyloo, but also because of Immunity. Because that's a team we haven't really seen in quite some time. They were constantly battling it out with Renegades as, you know, who's the best Oceanic team. And they've made some lineup changes. They brought in Suzy, who played for, I want to say, Chiefs at Taipei, who did a really good job, in my opinion. And,
he seemed to be a solid player.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, if they can, you know, do well, all of a sudden maybe they can, you know, show themselves as a better team than the Renegades. It's a lot of fun storylines to watch out for, you know, at this Asian minor. I think it's definitely worth watching. Although I think the time zones might be a tiny bit brutal for everyone living in Europe.
Well, it's like 3:30 in the morning right? or something.
Well, okay, prime time, in other words. Nice.
Prime time, yeah.
This is when we're both up at that hour, Anders.
Yeah, it's when I'm playing Clash Royale, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck all that. I'll catch. What is it? 11:30. Wait, hold on. 11:30 Asia Group A decider match. 14:30 decider match. What?
Is it going that late into the day? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is. It starts around 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
With Mongols and Monsters.
Group
so yeah.
Winners match 8:30 in the morning. So maybe I'll catch that one. Maybe I'll catch that.
Goddamn. Well,
like the end of it, last round or something.
So dedicated, son.
Well, I'm definitely not staying up until, you know, fucking 4 in the morning to watch, because it's probably going to be delayed half an hour. So, you know, just saying, CS. And then even though Mongols would be pretty sick to watch, I'd love to see that. Cyberzen also versus Immunity. That's going to be a good game. Cyberzen versus Immunity, that's going to be fun. That's going to be a fun game.
What
like you see, there's Korean teams here.
Yes.
I'm sure you have a weak spot for Korean CS players.
Oh, yeah, and Korean pop too, for sure. Yeah, 2-1 and all that stuff. No, I mean, I am excited. I mean, whether they're correct, I think Asian Counter-Strike in general is quite interesting. So I'll just sort of rudely try and just group everything into one thing and just say that I enjoy watching a different approach to the game. It goes back for me partly to the idea that I do actually think even at a professional level, a lot of the players that play the game even at the top level tend to be just a little bit lazy when it comes to making up new things, and in a way, it is like following the path of least resistance. If someone else does something and wins a tournament, it's easy to look and say, what did they do to win it, and can we replicate it, and maybe just make it like 2% better. That way, we win the next tournament, right? I think sometimes it's more fun to look at someone else who says, let's just throw everything out the window and see if we can't, do things our own way. I think sometimes for some of the Chinese teams, it's also just that maybe they are going to have a harder time keeping up with the European metagame just because, they need to find demos if they're not watching it through the whatever firewall and all these things, right? If they don't have access to Twitch, at least maybe not all of them do. So I think sometimes it just the different approaches become a little bit more interesting. So I'm definitely very excited for that. I will, if I can't watch the games, I will find them on a demo and look at them later because it is interesting. And also, what's fun about this is Nuke will be played. We didn't have this on the current sort of list on the current topic.
Nuke will be played?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will. Yeah.
Well, why is there a different system?
Because nothing makes sense. That's why.
You're right. I was wrong. I thought because Tour was coming up, the EU minor. I thought that was going to be. That has Nuke as well, though.
No, didn't they say that the
minor
Nuke's
will
not
have
going to be in
Nuke,
it?
right? The minor will have Nuke.
But yeah, the qualifier
Austin
for the
will have
minor.
Inferno still.
Yeah, but the qualifier for the EU minor didn't have Nuke.
Yeah.
That's how it was.
Right.
It's a mess. It's a mess. But it's this way every time Valve introduces a new map, isn't it?
Right.
I guess new map.
But you also have to sort of question: is there any way to do it outside of just telling everyone you're playing the map now?
No.
Like if you try to like smooth it in and say, hey, you guys, just tell us when you're ready to play the new map and we'll put it in, then it'll never happen, right? So
yeah. They just have to find the least horrible time to do it.
Yeah.
Which I guess now is actually a pretty good time because the major has, just been. And
yeah.
Obviously, I think leaks are already
until the next major, more or less.
Yeah,
and teams are already looking at the new Nuke, thinking, okay, how can we like some teams are thinking then we'll just focus on the 6 maps and use Nuke as our auto ban, or other teams will ban it against us. It'll turn into other teams' auto ban. So how can we take advantage of this with the existing maps? Like the Overpass and Cobble, like the teams learned how all that went down when that came around, right? And so they're jumping on it this time. They aren't letting it. I don't think that the teams are going to get bit in the ass this time around with Nuke.
I'm just really curious to see what's going to happen with Navi.
They're screwed, man, right? Now they have to.
Used to be the permaban, then it turned over to cash as soon as Nuke went out. Now Nuke is back again. It's like their nightmare.
Yeah, it must.
I honestly wonder.
But so I whenever I do my videos, I always try and talk to a lot of different players about, if nothing else, to show them a screenshot of something I thought of and have them say sort of yay or nay. A lot of the teams that I've spoken to so far have said we haven't even started to look at it. It's not something that we look at. So that's a bit interesting. I won't say which ones did because I feel like that would be betraying some sort of trust, right? But it feels like a lot of teams have not really spent a lot of time looking into it. I think especially if you're an underdog team, it makes sense to have Nuke as your potential, ace up the sleeve, because chances are everyone is going to be horrifically bad at playing the map. So, if some team lets it through and it randoms and you get it in the best of one, maybe it's going to work out. So
yeah, I think just taking a wild gander here, most of the guys you spoke with are on tier 1 teams who are committed to leagues who doesn't have Nuke in their current rotation, right? So it doesn't make sense for them to actually look at Nuke before that actually finalizes. So let's say if you're playing, let's say you've qualified for EPL, it doesn't make sense for you to start practicing Nuke now because you've got EPL to focus on.
Yeah.
So for a lot of the absolute best teams, they're gonna have to take it once they find just a tiny bit of space to actually go through the map and try to practice it a bit. But it doesn't make sense to do that while you're in the middle of preparing for a finals. But it's like you said, the underdog teams who have more time on their hand, who aren't on a plane pretty much, every third day, they can definitely take advantage of this. And it's like you said, with the randomized system, you can easily luck your way into Nuke, and all of a sudden you have this beastly CT or T side, depending on how the new map is going to play out in terms of balance. Like, you just have nailed that down, and you shaft a much better team. Like, it could very easally happen, and it's definitely worth doing.
Yes.
Even though people are going to put an asterisk to it.
Of course, but that's how it tends to be, right? Do you guys have some initial thoughts about the map? I know, Van, we've been talking a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And you hate everything that's new.
Well, I hate everything that's new that isn't well thought out.
All right, I was trying to catch you there, trying to say.
Yeah. Put words into my mouth, but I don't really like the new Nuke. Like, I'm sorry, like you've removed every skill jump on Nuke.
Yeah,
for some reason, it's like, why? You've just put ladders on everything, and
that goes to like a sort of almost like a game design philosophy, right?
And
it's
accessible.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at the current sort of skill distribution in Counter-Strike, even if you look outside of the professional teams, if you look at like how many people are in global elite, let's assume we can use that as like a somewhat of a guidance point to how good people are. Okay. Then you will realize pretty quickly that a huge amount of the population of Counter-Strike are at a much lower level, and probably will feel alienated by running into people who can sort of maybe make those jumps. I personally think that part of the charm of Counter-Strike is that once you master those things, it's really rewarding, right? And if you try and take them all out, it does kind of ruin a little bit of sort of the fun of learning it. But I mean, I can see the dilemma that you're in as a game developer if you have to choose between making more people feel welcome or catering to a small percentage of people who say, we kind of enjoy this.
That noise. Fuck it.
What noise?
I still remember
part of it.
Satisfaction. Like fucking satisfaction I felt when I nailed that fucking silo jump, man, for the first time. And I was like, got up there, got my head banged off by the operating garage. But still, I hit the jump.
Okay, look.
Jump. That's what mattered.
We're bringing up angry old men, and the problem is all of us represent all that when it comes to gaming, all three of us, because I obviously feel the same way. I obviously think it should stay, but
that's right.
But it's also because, I mean, look, not just in Counter-Strike, but all of gaming does seem to be sort of going this way, that people do want more or less sort of instant, gratification, right? People want immediately to feel like, oh, I'm at a really good level and I could play this sort of very well, right? How do you get away from that?
You don't. You do like Supercell did. And you make $1.6 million a day because you make a free-to-play game where you could literally just fucking, I feel shit at this game. Hold on, let me buy some gems real quick for €50, and it just goes and goes and goes.
Yeah, but here's the problem.
Baby. That's what's up. The problem. That's taking advantage of this generation. Man.
I'm wrecking people all day who buy those upgraded cards every single day.
How much?
Get out, dude.
How much have you spent? How much have you spent on Clash Royale?
Zero.
Be honest.
Zero. Not a single dollar.
I feel like we're gonna get a tweet from Moses in a while. It's gonna be like, that's just like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like he's gonna, sit there with like he's been taking photos of you buying gems.
I'll take a screenshot and tweet it later of my account. I've nothing at all. I've bought nothing.
But it's all about that you're at like. Are you at an entry level or something? Maybe like you're in the silver elite of Royale.
I'm at 1,500 trophies. This segment is not going to make any sense to people who haven't played Clash Royale.
Of course not. Yeah. But like 1,500 trophies is like, what is it? The Nova, Gold Nova, or whatever.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Yeah. So we're not
even there.
Running into people.
Silver.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're still running into people who doesn't know how to move forward, right? It's kind of the same thing. Like you don't need to. That's kind of like if you want to bring that back to CS, right? If you're in Gold Nova,
you've heard it here first. But Clash Royale is going to be the next esports. I'm not. This is no joke. I'm serious. It absolutely will be. The game is too much fun, man. I can't deal with it. I actually cannot deal with it.
But should it be an esport?
It already is. yesterday at around 11 in the evening, I watched a 3.5 hour long Clash Royale tournament that was on YouTube. It's actually a fun game. I can't help it.
I don't even know, dude.
We're just providing like free advertising, but this is serious. It's actually a hilarious game.
But
right.
yeah, no, like back to the thing
Just
about
go pull up
instinct.
BCG, you know.
We're
Okay,
doing
so
WC
can I I'll just vocalize my theory about this. I think if you are a game development company, you essentially end up sort of pushing your audience one way or the other. And if you end up saying to them, you should expect to always be sort of part of the game or part of a round or part of a map, even if you're not that good. We've designed the game to sort of include everybody. Then people will expect more of that. I think of it as like a slippery slope. You know, people always come back and say, but now I'm running into this other person who's a little bit better with this gun, and I think that's unfair. I feel excluded from the game because these other people are very good. So can we just make everything exactly even and level? And I think that's a horrible sort of approach to game design. I think to go the other way, though, is also to wave goodbye to a lot of players and therefore a lot of money. So I think
this is where you have the golden middle road, right? Like look at a game like Dark Souls, right?
Yeah.
To actually get further in that game, you have to actually understand what you're doing. You have to put some time in to actually figure out, like, oh, I can't just like sit here mindlessly and button mash. That's not going to work. It's the same thing with every well-designed game. It's like, okay, I'm actually going to have to put in some effort and some time and actually think about my actions to be rewarded for it. And I think yeah, exactly.
Achieving something.
Yeah, like you're getting that sense of accomplishment. It should be a reward enough.
You need a culture of gamers around your game that are willing to accept that kind of logic, right? Because if you don't, then your forums will be spammed with idiots who say,
if you're pandering to the lowest, like the lowest of the low,
that's why I mean,
where do you actually
like a slippery slope, right?
That's why I mean it's a slippery slope. It's hopeless. Yeah. But no, it's just a dumb way of going about it because eventually then you won't have any challenge with games at all. And I guess we might be the old guys because when I played games earlier, it was because you wanted a challenge. Like you wanted to solve the puzzles to actually finish the game. You wanted a bit of a struggle, not just the realism of it, but you actually want it to be challenged at some level.
I mean, so if you go back to think about sort of Nuke and the skill jump on Nuke that we were talking about, right? I can understand why you try and sort of remove some of those things. But the problem is, I think again, once you remove a couple of them, then people will essentially want them all removed. And I think that makes the maps a bit poorer. It makes them less interesting, right? Less spicy. So I wish that I would probably go the other way. I would probably try and add a couple of more fun things like that, where it requires a little bit of skill. And it's not like if you can do the Nuke jump on the previous version of Nuke, then you win every round because you could do that. I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's not even an advantage. You just get killed anyway. But I think it's a bit of a shame if you start to go down that path too much. I don't know that Valve are doing that yet. I'm just saying it's like a cautionary thing for me. I think of it as like a slippery slope.
Have you seen the development of CS maps?
Yeah.
How many skill jumps do we have left?
Yeah, wallbangs is a similar story in my opinion, right? I mean, I think we all agree on this, so it's a bit weird to try and debate it too much. But I'm trying to play the devil's advocate and sort of show both sides of the argument, right?
Well, yeah, it's one side is 6 Skrilla, and the other side is
happy customers.
A competitive game that has lasted 18 years or something crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't know. I feel like it's a topic that's probably too deep to cover in the middle of all of this, but I think
we've been going for like nearly an hour and a half now, so
so there's actually one big topic that we haven't done that we should do, which is E-League, because we covered all of North America and somehow we forgot about E-League, and I feel like we kind of have to talk about a little bit about that because obviously that is coming up sort of a week after Pro League ends, the Pro League finals in London, right, which are obviously going to be fun, which we didn't mention those either, did we? But so just about E-League, what is what kind of expectations do you guys have for it? It seems to be ever evolving in terms of how many teams are in it and what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
What is 24 now?
Yeah.
24 teams, yeah. I'm expecting it to stay at that number at least for season 1.
Well, it'll be
The bidding is
14,
closed to
a little over
24
6
teams.
weeks, right? So
Yeah, it seems like the schedule and everything has been set. Like they've already announced the 3 first groups. To me, and people are probably not going to be super happy about this. To me, I'm more interested in the production side of things than I am for the actual level of competition.
How dare you, Vendetta?
No, but like honestly, look, if you take a look over the, I know Fallen had a lot to say about this with Temple Storm not being invited and whatnot, but especially when you have this many teams in the league, somebody is going to be a stomping victim, or not someone, just a lot of teams are actually going to get stomped.
This first group: Luminosity, Team Liquid, Cloud9, and Renegades.
Feels like a group out of Dreamhack Austin,
right?
But like. But for me, right? this is like Luminosity goes through, and the 3 others are like kind of meh because they're not going to matter at the later stages of the tournament. That's how I see it. So Group A already for me isn't too interesting. Like sure, I mean, it could be interesting for people who are fans of the teams to actually see if their team makes it out, or if you're from the same region as them, if let's say Renegades make it out, as an Australian or something. But outside of that, I don't see them doing too much towards the end of the tournament. So
if the interesting games get aired on television and the less interesting games are sort of played online,
streamed,
in sort of a business and entertainment sense, and with the goal of sort of exposing this to a large audience, do you think that is it worth it then to do it like that? If you say, okay, well, we're going to have some less interesting games on some of the days, but then once we hit mainstream American television, we have the good games ready for those days.
Of course, it makes sense. Oh, absolutely, but I don't see the point in having 24 teams for it then. Then you can probably do it with 16 teams and still get the same kind of a deal. Like if you want to have a 6th matchup on Friday night, then you can still do that with 16 teams. Probably there's a better chance of not having lesser interesting matchups the rest of the time. So if somebody actually catches onto this on a Friday night, watches it on TV and is like, "Ooh, this is so cool. I'm watching," let's go Group B, G2 versus Net or T2 or Tyloo or Optic, whatever, right? And you see that on Friday and you're like, "Oh, this was really exciting. I want to see this more." And you're being told, well, you can, see the next couple of games on Monday.
Well, Ben, you watch more American sports than both of us combined.
Very true.
What do you make of it? Like, what is just your subjective opinion? American sports culture and esports, that is Counter-Strike. How many percentage chance do you give it that this will have some sort of breakthrough?
Oh, that's really hard to tell.
I don't think there is. I think anyone knows. I think that's the fun part of this, right? I mean,
it's definitely a fun experience, but I guess I'm being crass because I'm in the position I am in, right? I do watch this every day, so for someone who's completely new to it, every game could be amazingly exciting and interesting to them. And they, obviously they're going to discover everything for the first time, so they might see one team from this place, and that's going to be something that draws them to them, and that's all it takes. So that
they won't
that
care
could
if it's a good
be
or a bad team.
Yeah, no, they wouldn't even know initially, right? They're all only going to know that, oh, these guys have, like, the majority of these guys are from New York, so they're kind of my home team. That's really cool. I want to start following them, and you kind of live with that. Because I think that's one thing, at least a lot of people, or it seems like that, at least American teams, just in NFL, NBA, or what have you, they have pretty steady fan bases. So it doesn't really matter if you've gone 64 years without ever winning a championship. They still have their fan base, and they're equally hopeful before each season starts that today, this year is going to be the year where everything happens. So I guess So yeah, for a newcomer, sure, it could be very exciting, but for me, I'm hesitant. But I'm really excited to see what Turner can do to CS. Like what new things they can do to CS and how cool it's going to be just as a production, from a production point of view, and what kind of storylines they're able to build up throughout a season. Because I think that's something, and I think Sumler kind of alluded to this, that a lot of the leagues today are kind of just leagues. They're just something you go through all the way up until the finals, and that's where things really start to heat up. But it's not necessarily easy to pay attention to it, especially because you feel there's so many games every single day. So actually, following, let's say, EPL from weekday one to the last one, it's not very doable, and it's hard to kind of grasp of where every team is at the end when you can get to the finals. So if Turner are really good at actually creating cool storylines for people to follow, to I don't know, maybe make you latch onto one team specifically to root for, that could be really cool.
I mean, I think for me I mean, apart from just seeing Turner do some work, and because obviously we already met them in Vegas, and I think they seem like very cool people, and they seem to be very open-minded about including talent and I guess knowledge from the scene, rather than just sort of trusting in their own instincts. So that, I think that was interesting for me, at least, to just see that. But what I'm really interested in is this sort of almost like a lottery. I think you could do the best production, you can have the best games on the show, you could have everything working, but there is some sort of X factor involved in, will enough people tune in? Will it bring enough coverage in the first couple of weeks that people will stick with it? And I don't think anyone can know that. I don't think Turner or anyone else can know that. But if it does work, then obviously it will be sort of a sort of a minor revolution of some sort, right? It'll be interesting. And just, I know I keep doing this, but I have to do it, because we are talking about like the state of CS. What it also will do, I think, is it will make for a rather interesting turn of sort of, or a change of pace when it comes to finding sponsorships for teams and for tournaments and for everything else, because a lot of sponsors that are used to talking to Turner when it comes to NBA and stuff like that will, if nothing else, they will have been exposed to this esports thing, right? Someone will have sat in a meeting and say, hey, we have a new product that you guys can buy into that is esports. And even if they don't, just the fact that they've heard the name and they've had it, presented to them once, means there might be some more doors opening like that. And I actually think that's a very interesting sort of side consequence of all of this. Maybe it's like really nerdy esports business stuff, but I think that's a potential gain for everybody, not just for Turner or for the teams playing it, but for like the whole Counter-Strike ecosystem, basically.
And if I'm not mistaken, Turner are flying the teams over for each group, right? For their matchups.
Yes, I believe so. They'll be staying there, and then
it's pretty much going to be a LAN event every game, which does add which definitely makes it cooler. At least for me, I think that's way cooler than just watching a random online game. The fact that you actually have people going head to head at offline events, that makes it way better for me. And it's also going to give teams a lot. I guess for the not upper echelon teams, it's going to be a great way to get some sort of experience from that kind of an environment, which also is going to be really cool. And it's going to be a new challenge for them as well, knowing that they're going to go out to live on Friday nights. It's going to be X amount of millions potentially watching this on TV, which is a bit of a different monster than what streams are right now. Like, people who've been to Major, they've had massive amount of viewers watching them, but I'm not sure if the fact that it's on TV could actually play into their heads a tiny bit.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that. I think we owe it to, because it's happening, I guess, in sometime next week, starting with the group stage, and then obviously the playoffs and everything else. But the Pro League finals, right, in London, and it's going to be the O2, if I'm not mistaken.
Which is the same one as DreamHack, right? Was that the same?
No, DreamHack was in the Copper Box Arena.
Was it the Copper Box? Oh, okay. So the
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's a different venue. And I think the O2 will be quite massive. I wonder about the turnout. London. This is the thing, right? This is something that's really hard to know how it turns out. Like, Malmö was a great thing, because so many people came over. Copenhagen is right on the other side, so it really easy to be able to fly there as well and then come to Malmö. London is, one of the, if not the most expensive cities, maybe only outdone by New York and Hong Kong or something. London is just a massively expensive city to stay in. So if you wanted to come down from anywhere else in England and book a hotel and sort of watch the tournament over those 2 days in the stadium, it might be too expensive for some people. I don't know what the ticket prices are like, but that was one of my immediate concerns. I mean, I certainly hope that people will turn up for it, but you got to wonder about choosing London in that sense. Even if the arena is cool. I don't know what do you guys spend any time? Do you guys lie awake at night worrying about ticket sales, or is it just me?
I haven't really. Well, I worry about when events.
It's more like the British scene, right?
The British scene.
How are you gonna take a dig at them now, Sam?
No, and it's not
Come
a
on.
dig. It's objective. You know, it's just you know.
No, just because there's not that many great players from the UK doesn't mean that there's a lot of fans from that country. Look at NA.
Fair enough. When there was a time when I could have pulled up the stats for our stream, and I could have told you exactly how many of those viewers were from the UK, right?
Quite a bit, actually. I remember.
That number, was never really like huge.
I feel like all.
I wonder now. I mean, it could be sick. It could be sick, but it'll be fun to be there. I'm just thinking about what happened with Dreamhack, right? When we went there for Dreamhack, I mean, it was still a good venue. Half of it was filled out for CS. There was a really active Smash tournament going on where we could literally hear them shouting from halfway across the arena. It was pretty sick. And then like COD was just empty. So I mean, we'll see if.
You should turn up your microphone again, Sumner, if you can.
What's that?
Can you turn up your microphone a bit again? I think some people are saying.
No, maybe I'm not talking into it.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm talking over it instead of.
Gotta put it in your mouth, Sumner.
So.
Help.
So we didn't mute the mic. All right. So, but yeah, I'm wondering, ESL are much better at getting their brand out there and getting their message out there than Dreamhack are, for example. So I'm curious to see, if they have a few months. Well, they have a few months. They've had a couple of months. Are they going to be able to actually, fill that place? Actually get everybody into it? I don't know, man. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it feels like they've put a lot more effort into, filling out Cologne, for example, which is going to be, the next major. And, they spread the Cologne message all the time. But like what Pro League feels like it's gone under the radar for some reason. It doesn't feel like $1 million, $750,000 tournament or whatever it is.
Do you think one of those reasons might be because it's a league?
Yeah, I guess.
Especially because
it's an event, it's a league, so they don't care. They're getting all their viewers off of the league stuff online anyways.
Not necessarily that they don't care, but like, when do you start promoting that stuff? Because if you're already working on, I guess just promoting your league as is, just during regular season, that's going to take a lot of your focus. So that takes away from, actually getting the news out about your finals when you actually are done with the regular season. Whereas an event like Cologne, for instance, you have, news about it in Cologne, like, Line Access this summer, this and that is going to happen there, right?
Cologne is going to blow everything out of the water because it's been going for so long, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had last year, I mean, it is still the most hype event that we've done. So.
Yeah, no, it's going to be crazy, right? But if you do a league, then you obviously have to focus on the actual league until it gets to the playoff stages, and that might take some of the effort you might put into promoting, I guess, the final product or the final four of it properly. Then that's just like a curse of the fact that it is a league and it just take up so much time.
There's also like weird competition going on between the leagues. We just talked about E-League and we've got Pro League. We've also obviously got Faceit putting on their league, right? With Twitch and with sort of, I guess, part ownership by the teams or something like that. Yeah, all that stuff going on, right? There is like clearly some sort of competition going on with which league is like the most interesting one or whatever. So it feels like maybe just the whole league system right now is still there's just a big question mark about what's happening there, and who comes out on top, if anyone. I think it's a bit of a mess, actually, in my opinion, right now. Like the individual events, like Malmö, like just the one-off events seem to be hitting a pretty good level right now, and then like all the league stuff almost always seems to be a bit behind for some reason.
You know why, Anders? You know why?
Tell me, please.
All right, here. Let me illustrate it for you, right? Demonstrate.
Talk into the mic, though.
Yeah, I'll talk into the mic. The mic is going to follow me. And the mic could also work in this analogy, because it extends.
Jesus, this is going to go in deep, isn't it?
Out, right?
Go on.
Let's go ahead and say that this is, this is the league, and this is the league's prize pool, And this is what each and every league does. They unzip their pants and they go, and they just say, "So, how big's yours, bitch?" And that's what happens, man, between these three leagues. And then they realize, oh wait, we need to actually have money to run production and to get a venue and to get people to work on it and to do all these sorts of things. But we put all of our money into our massive prize pool cock, and that's what that's
Is this what you're?
There's no money left.
That's actually just a beautiful analogy. I definitely appreciate that. I definitely do. Yeah, I think in so many words that is what that is what's happening actually. Yeah, I think can we top that? I think we might be nearing.
I mean, everything. If we're gonna top that, somebody's gonna get banned from Twitch. So
yeah. That's pretty much it. Yeah. So I think if we start to think about moving towards closing remarks, is there anything that we haven't covered that you guys feel passionately about?
I know one thing, and it was brought up in chat as well. When we were talking about Nuke, actually, because with Nuke coming in, you have another map going out, but. Most likely, if Valve stick true to what they've been doing in the past, it's going to resurface, and it's going to be horrifying. But what kind of changes would you like to see done to Inferno? Did you actually think that the additional time that they've added to the rounds actually solved the issues Inferno had?
I still wonder if you couldn't make the entrance into be just a little bit wider. Maybe like Banana and the entrance to be just a little bit wider. It doesn't have to be a lot, but just a little bit. Right. I'd be quite cool with that. Apart from that, I actually don't have that many complaints. There are some wall bangs I wish would return, but that for me is also almost universal across all maps. Skybox wise, I'm trying to think of what the skyboxes are like off the top of my head.
Those skyboxes on B, pretty much non-existent.
Yeah, there are almost none, right? So I'm all right with that actually. So I think I'm talking like very, very minute changes. What I hope they don't do is do too many sort of visual changes, right?
Set, for instance.
Yeah, or just like too much clutter and too much. If you obviously when you reintroduce a map, you want it to look sort of prettier than the other version of the map. But how good it looks can't come in the way of how it plays when you're playing the map, basically. So I think
it's the pillars, man. The pillars, that's what stands out. Get rid of those goddamn pillars that are just invulnerable and you can't wallbang through. You can't do any damage through. So
get rid of the car as well while you're at it.
Yeah, remove the car. I agree. No cars.
Get some boxes in there. Remove the pillars. Make it wider. That one too. Get some boxes there as well. Should make a petition to move everything that's metal in CS. Honestly,
look at forklift. Like
barrels,
forklift. I think from Cash is like been by the devil.
Yeah. So you got forklift, car. You've got every barrel ever made, and all these fun little things. Like whenever they have like a tiny little metal post, like let's say like the handle on Birdwalk on Nuke, for instance, right? It's like a 2 millimeter thick metal thing that's going to remove 95% of your damage. And it's like 3 of them there. So it's really hard to actually hit the guy you're shooting at instead. All those kind of things I just want to see fly the hell away. Like, just take a deep step into hell.
Take a boat out of this world.
Inferno, baby.
Yeah, ride a tricycle over over a cliff. That type of thing. No, but for Inferno, I just want to see Banana made wider. I kind of want to see mid made wider as well, because right now every choke point on Inferno is covered by one smoke.
Yeah, that's my big issue as well.
Literally everything. Yeah, and there's no way to bypass it or like go around it either. So if you think about like a map like Dust 2, for instance, you have like the cross from long is you can cover it with one smoke, but you have to consider the height difference as well. Like if someone's playing on short.
Well, I think the big popular thing that everyone was talking about on Reddit for a while was people saying, well, couldn't we add another entrance into B from Banana, essentially. Like Banana split into two and then going to B out, which I think would be horrifying. I definitely wouldn't want that. I understand why people say that, because that is, I guess, another way of solving the one smoke to cover the entrance problem, but it would make it so incredibly impossible to hold B-bomb side as a CT. So, yeah, I wouldn't want that. But I agree that the one smoke sort of covering a whole hallway is definitely a bit of an issue. Even with the increased time, it's still a bit weird.
Speaking of making things too easy for what the hell, Sam? Did everything die?
Apparently the internet died in my office or something. The internet just went out. So there you go. What's up,
Were you on your phone?
Yeah.
Right. That's like
it.
That's essentially what we just have here. Is like when you're holding it down a little bit further, that's like the view from your dick looking up. So that's a bit weird. I don't know if I appreciate that at all, actually. But
So this is like the one time you actually could have used the selfie stick, Sam.
Yeah, think about it.
You're actually right. Well, shit. I've lost the chat. I've lost everything here, guys. I don't have internet, so.
Wow. Well, did you have any last topics you wanted to bring up, or where are we going with this?
Nothing in particular. I feel we got some good analogies in there. We kind of hit the points that needed to be hit a little bit at least. And we need to just look and see how we want to run it for next week's show. If we do another show next week, but we're going to be doing Pro League next week, so we're going to have to figure out when we do.
Maybe we'll do the show from Pro League if possible.
Actually, did we talk about Pro League at all? Outside of like, we just talked very loosely about it. We haven't talked about anything that's actually going to happen at Pro League.
Listen, there was a lot of shit to talk about this show.
Yeah.
Should we save? How about this? How about, since we're probably going to do a bunch of preview videos for Pro League once we're there, we'll do the Pro League stuff at actual Pro League, and we'll make that work. I think that'll be the way to do it. So look forward to that. Yeah, do you guys? I'm gonna take the opportunity to close out the show in that case and say that if you are watching from the YouTube bot, then subscribe to the channel. We'll try and make more of this, and generally, if you've been keeping up, we'll try and do more and more YouTube content in general. But we also really appreciate you guys watching live on Twitch here, because that's obviously helpful, and you guys have been asking some good questions. We've tried to cover as much as we can, and hopefully we'll be able to sort of up the level and the quality all the time. So please give us any feedback you can, and we definitely very much appreciate it. So yeah, that's it for me. Semler, Ven, any last words? Now is the time.
No, nothing really.
I gotta say, the Skype app on my phone, this is the first time that I've used it to actually do multiple video, and it's actually pretty legit. It's like,
did you see something nice about Skype?
Yeah,
I got a little picture of Anders here. I got a little feed of Van. Like, it's all split into. It's really nice and neat, actually. It's pretty legit.
I desperately hope they're paying you for this, Sam. Otherwise, this is disappointing. But that's going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back next time with more State of CS.